Wall Street Journal, we're not Inc., we're not The Economist magazine, we don't have their budgets, but yet we want the standards of those publications. I insist on those standards. And so it's still a challenge finding the writers. You know, I've got good writers, but often I have to go in and massage and put in the depth and really, or just tell them, this is what I want, go find this, go talk to that person, go get these statistics, put that in, and so, yeah.
From an editorial perspective, you got there, you got full reins. This is what you wanted. This is the direction you want to go in.
Yeah.
You had a vision.
Yeah.
What? Well, let me start by asking why. Why do you think that was necessary? That type of an editorial, actually.
Oh, the publisher is the one who determined, and I fully agreed with him when I was made aware of the magazine. He wanted a magazine that would be sort of a networking where African Americans, this is a black audience, where black people can come and get lessons in entrepreneurship, tips on entrepreneurship, career tips, industry trends, how-tos, and be introduced to African Americans or black people, because the people we cover, it's the black community, African American, Afro-Caribbean, African from Europe, everybody. And to be able to see the names and the personalities, the people who are doing magnificent things, who are role models in business or in careers and so on. Yeah. And it is absolutely necessary.
You know, whenever I have an opportunity to talk with you, I'm delighted because I always come away learning something. That's you. That's what you do. You mentor, you guide, you counsel. And when I hear some people speak of you, I hear words like phenomenal, kind, nurturing. But I know that someone that is very strong, very courageous, cannot get to that space without any sort of weakness or challenges. How did you use any particular weakness? Well, let me ask you this. Was there a particular weakness that jumped out at you way back and you worked on that to help to transform you into this amazing, confident person that you are?
You know, in Tai Chi, when I was studying Tai Chi, one of the lessons that our instructor kept giving us, Lao Shi, is the sharpest sword goes through the hottest fire. A number of things have given me the confidence that I have to push forward in spite of. Number one, I love myself. My charity really does begin at home. That's with me. I love myself. Number two, having had to live in circumstances and in conditions in countries where I knew absolutely nobody, it humbles you. I like people. I like people, and you either bring people up or certainly don't take them down. But you either keep them where they are, where you've met them, and you bring them up. Number three, you're asking about weaknesses. You know, it's not weakness. I don't think that we have weaknesses. What I do think we have are disconnects with our true self. You see, I think we all come into this world equipped with what we need to carry out our purpose. And having gone through the challenges of making a way in these countries behind God's back, as we say in Guyana, you have nothing to depend on but your humanity and your approach to another human being, another child of the universe.
You have studied Tai Chi extensively, and when I speak to you, I mean, you're evolved spiritually. You have this awareness of things. At what point in your journey, your personal journey, did it hit you that there's something more than just flesh and bones to us? When did that journey start? That awareness, sorry.
I believe that was always there.
Mm-hmm.
It is when did I bring it out? When I was in Guyana, growing up in Guyana, I left Guyana when I was 14 years old.
Oh.
And at one point in Guyana, there was a group that came to Guyana, Reverend Skinner, but this is while I was at Bishop's. Reverend Skinner, and he had a group of singers, the Seal Sisters. What year was that in Guyana? I forget whether it was second form, third form, or what. But anyway, Reverend Skinner came, and he came to Bishop's High School. He was invited to Bishop's to preach. And he preached, and he preached like a true black American preacher, you know? And the Seal Sisters were singing Just As I Am without one plea. And it was so, and a bunch of us went up and we were saved. Right? We were saved. All right. Going home after that is when you start to think. Now, at the time, I went to Bishop's when I was 10 years old. And I was in, the lower 3C with all the other 10-year-olds. And so you begin to understand just at that time, right? 11, 12, that it is more, it is more than this. You begin to understand. And then my father was a Rosicrucian. My father was a Rosicrucian, and
Oh.
he would take us sometimes to some of the events that they would have. My father chanted every day. You know, he did the chants and the readings that he did, a lot of spiritual readings, and he would talk to us about certain aspects of life that were beyond the physical.
Mm-hmm.
You see, and I remember one particular lesson my father gave us, the lesson of the light bulbs. And he sat us down, my two brothers and I, and he said, everybody, there's a string or a cord, an electric cord, and there are different light bulbs on the cord, strung. Each human being is a light bulb on the cord. Each human being is a light bulb on the cord of the universe.
Mm-hmm.
Some bulbs shine brighter, some shine not as bright, but everybody has the power and the ability to draw from the same source of
Powerful.
electricity. You see, so you choose to shine bright or you choose to be dull.
It's a
You
choice.
know, it is a choice. It is always a choice. I believe it's always a choice. You control your universe, your world.
If you know who you are, anyone can define you. That's your quote.
Yeah. As the Jamaicans say, if you don't know where you're going, any breeze will take you there.
So I ask you, who are you, or who would you like us to believe you are?
Who would I like you to believe I am?
Yes.
What you see, what you hear. I am me. There's Rosalind,
Yes.
which is the name that I was called when I came to the United States of America because it's the first name on my birth certificate.
Mm.
And that's how they roll. Ivy is the name. Anybody who knows me from Guyana knows Ivy from Bishops and family. Ivy. Rosalind is is the mix of Guyana and Europe and Africa, America. Ivy is Ivy is fundamentally Guyanese with influences, but not not the Rosalind. I've spent most of my life outside of Guyana.
Mm-hmm.
You see, um, who am I? Who am I? You find out from reading what I've written.
Yeah, we get
That's
into
how
that.
you find out
Yes.
who I am. I can't tell you who I am.
Okay, we get into that. Outside your parents, who would you say had the greatest influence on you?
My grandfather.
Ah.
My grandfather. I was talking with my daughter, one of my daughters today. We talk a lot about this is my maternal grandfather.
Uh-huh.
And he's the only grandparent that I know. The others were gone by the time I was born. And my grandfather traveled a lot. I think that's where I got it from. Um, he worked on the lady boats. I think it was a Canadian or British. He would travel all over. He's the first person while I was in Ghana I saw that we saw with thermal underwear. You know, he had it in his cedar closet that he had, and he would sit the grandchildren down and tell us all these stories of his travels. And he would bring all of these curious objects from boats and places that he went to. He had a grass skirt that he, would show us from the different cultures.
Yeah.
And he would wave his wand. He had a short ebony stick and a leather bag. He would wave over this bag, and Sweetie would appear, Candice would appear. And he would take us to cricket matches. At night, we would sit in the little portico with him and we would sing hymns, now the day is over, night is drawing nigh. And he would talk to us, he would talk to us. And you know, my grandfather,
Wow.
his travel
So he was a
bug.
storyteller.
Yes, 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 yeah.
Do you believe that's where you get this
You know,
passion for storytelling from?
fashion.
Passion.
Oh, passion.
Yes.
Okay.
Passion.
Yeah, I don't think we're born in isolation. I think
Hmm.
we come in with all of these
Yes.
influences of the past, of the ancestors and so on. So yes, and then I found out recently that that same grandfather was a book binder. I never knew this until I think it's sometime this year I found out that he was a bookbinder, and I could see my grandfather, knowing the man that he is, I could see him while he's binding those books, thinking about books and writing and what goes into the writing of the book and all
Mm.
of that. That was a profound connection for me when I found that out.
I'll take a quick break.
Yes.
When we return, Rosalind, I want to start us off with your journey as an author
Okay.
because I am eager to get into this book,
Yes.
The Guyana Contract. We are back with Mrs. Rosalind McLymont. Rosalind,
Yes.
tell us about your journey as an author. When did you write your first book?
My first book is called Middle Ground, and it was written while I began it while I was living in Kinshasa, actually, in 1970. It was 1975.
Mhm.
I began that just as I was having my first child in Kinshasa, and I actually put it aside because of for various reasons, a lot of troubling reasons, actually personal things.
Mhm.
But I brought it with me actually in 1976 when I came back to the country, back to the United States for the first time since I'd left to go and live in Africa. And I had a few people read it. Um, one professor, a very dear friend of mine, and I asked their opinion, and they said, well, this is for just an African audience because it had a lot to do with what I saw for women in
Mhm.
Africa. All of my characters, in all of my writing, I always have a strong woman, a
Mm.
strong female character. And so I went back to Africa with it. I put it aside. And when I finally came to the United States to live and I wanted to publish it, I had to go over now. I wanted to shape it for a broader audience, an audience that would, that Guyanese Caribbean people that would encompass Caribbean people, African Americans, North Americans, um, and Africans on the continent, a global audience essentially. Of course, my protagonists are all black people. And so I massaged it and I incorporated what I learned. I was able to step back from Africa now that I was back in the United States. I was able to, the work that I was doing as a journalist, there were lessons that needed to be taught to deepen the Africa story. You see, what I was learning in journalism. And then after journalism, going to work in a newspaper that was a global business newspaper, working with Bear Stearns. It gave me all of those things and a conversation with Africa that I did not have in the original book. And so that produced Middle Ground, which today it's the best thing I think that I have written. Not that I've done a lot of articles that are, you know, with the same themes, but in terms of books, that is the first. You see, from there it went to a collection of articles I had written and columns I had written about Africa and nonfiction. That is Africa Strictly Business, The Steady March to Prosperity.
I remember that.
There's that, and now there is the Guyana Contract.
Yes.
And I'm working on, even though the Guyana Contract that should be out in June, there are a number of others that I'm working on. 5 Days in Togo, for example, is about the global pharmaceutical industry. Once I went to Togo as a guest of the Red Cross, the U.S. Red Cross, to look at this campaign. And it has to do with, you know, how pharmaceutical companies try to use us as guinea pigs and, you know, well, I wouldn't give away that. There's another one that I've almost done called Chocolate for Wall Street. And Chocolate for Wall Street is the decision. It begins on the night that President Obama was inaugurated that day, when a Wall Street titan decided this is a turning point in America, and maybe there should be a woman of color heading a Wall Street company. And what he goes through to find these women, to bring them in and talk to them. We get the stories of the individual women, one black, one Asian, and one Hispanic, and what their stories are. Because as you can see from the 25 influential women, we hear a lot of the stories that women of color, high-ranking women of color on Wall Street, in the financial industry, how they got there and what their stories are. So Chocolate for Wall Street is about that. Yeah.
Let us talk about this contract.
The Guyana contract.
Guyana contract, yes. Yeah. How did you arrive at this name, this provocative name?
It is provocative?
Yes,
you know,
it is.
It started out as the contract. And then I was doing some research and I saw that there is something also called the contract that has nothing to do with, it's a song, I think, or something. Anyway, I wanted to also focus it more. I wanted something that would draw people immediately and you know, at least a community of people immediately. And so I played with the Demerara contract. But then there's that wonderful, wonderful, wonderful Demerara Gold.
Yes.
And I didn't want, you know how old people are.
Yes.
Shikapi off.
Yeah.
You know. I didn't want that. But Demerara is so poetic, the term alone.
Yeah, I love it.
It's beautiful,
yes.
isn't it? It just rolls off
yes.
the tongue. When I said, no, it couldn't be that.
That would have been a beautiful name, though.
Yeah, the Demerara contract, because it does have the Demerara River in the book, you know.
Oh, God.
But the Guyana contract, I think, gives more latitude. I think it's a bigger draw. And it positions, it focuses, and it sounds nice to me.
Yes, I like it. I mean, It's very provocative because what does this contract mean? Here's a plane, and I put up the poster split
Mm-hmm.
image. Here's this plane, and here is this silhouette of this man in the foreground, and you're thinking, is it about Jim Jones? Is it about Jonestown? This it's
Really?
intriguing. Yeah, yeah, because what is the contract? And so now I'm like, well, I gotta
And they're
read
the
this.
eyes of the woman at the top
Exactly.
looking out.
Exactly. And you did this
Yes.
without even really thinking about that, right?
Yeah.
But I'm like,
Jim
the
Jones.
Guyana contract. What was the contract? So give us a little bit about but what this is. What it's all about. I read about one of your characters. What's her name? Drusilla.
Drusilla
Drusilla.
Duran.
Let's start with the plot first. Can you share that? The plot, or you rather wait until after the book comes out?
No, I can say a little bit about the book. First of all, Drusilla, that name Drusilla,
Yes.
I chose it in for the memory of my
Hmm.
great aunt that
Oh.
we call Drew, Aunt Drew. Her name was Drusilla, my grandfather's sister. So yeah, that's a name for my family. She's no longer with us, of course. Um, this story is about the influence that corporations, multinational corporations have on little countries like Guyana, Caribbean countries, Africa, developing countries.
Hmm.
The contract, there are several contracts within the book. Um, there is the main contract and a manufacturing, an aviation company, a multinational aviation company wants